What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Medalist Sports Card Podcast. I'm your host, Clayton. Thanks for joining me on this Thursday. I kind of mentioned this on Instagram. Going to be moving these to once a week so I can produce a little bit better, more quality, longer show for you guys versus kind of putting out two kind of halved episodes. Appreciate you guys all support on the previous episodes. If you haven't already, head on over to Instagram at medalist_sportscards. Give me a follow over there. Shoot me a DM with any content ideas you guys have for the show. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to leave a like and a subscribe below on the video. It really helps out, kind of moves the video, and hopefully get some more eyes on it. If you're listening to anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Anchor, make sure to leave a review below, share it with your friends. I really appreciate the support. But for now, let's get into today's episode. All right, first couple parts of this episode, let's get into what I like to call now the hobby rundown. Breaking news, hobby hits, the news going on in the sports card market, the trading card market, the general hobby collectibles market. Anything that I think is of value to you guys, I'm going to hopefully bring to you guys both on Instagram in more real time and this weekly and kind of expand on it in the podcast. For this week, some of the breaking news that I saw or I think is relevant is James Harden kind of struggling with an injury, leaving Kyrie to kind of handle the load for the Nets. How does this affect them going forward? Who knows? Their synergy was always a big red flag for a lot of people. Now with them not being able to play fully together, how does this affect them going into the playoffs in the final stretch here of the regular season? Can James Harden get healthy? Is KD going to come back healthy? Can Kyrie keep up this production on his own? Who knows? Something to kind of watch as you go into it. If you're holding James Harden cards, KD cards, Kyrie cards, hoping for a big playoff run, might be something to keep an eye on closer as we get towards the end of the regular season here in the NBA. Fernando Tatis suffered a left shoulder dislocation, pretty major compared to his prior ones. He got his MRI on Tuesday as I'm recording this. Not sure what the results are. I'll probably talk about that over on Instagram on Wednesday or Thursday if they release those results, how long he's going to be out. He wasn't playing well anyways, batting like 167, had 5 or 6 errors. So something just to keep an eye on for just Tatis cards, but as the modern prospecting baseball card market as a whole kind of grows and continues to expand and become more like the football, NBA, modern card market, how does this affect that going forward? I think baseball is a sport where a lot of people think injuries aren't as common as maybe football or basketball is. So this might be a huge hit, obviously, to Tatis cards, but also to the modern prospecting card market as a whole when it comes to baseball. The other thing I just talked about today on Tuesday as I'm recording this, Topps goes public. The former Disney CEO Eisner now runs Topps. He decided to take that public. With PSA Collectors Universe being taken off just a few months ago and went public with Nat Turner's purchasing of a private investing group, now Topps has gone public. How does this affect potentially your ability to invest in the card market, not just through the hard assets of cards, the tangible assets of a cardboard piece or an NFT? You're able to invest in the sports card and hobby market as a whole through the Topps investment on the New York Stock Exchange now. Don't think it really affects anything. Just something to maybe consider as you're looking to diversify your portfolio slightly here. Some of the other things. Last week, 2020-2021 NBA Prizm dropped. LaMelo's injury was the big buzz going into it. How does it affect that? The Dutch auction on Panini fell all the way down to 2K. It sold out at 2,000. I'm doing air quotes for those of you listening. A lot of people think that could have been a Panini pull at 2,000, but boxes have held over 2,000, 2,500, 2,300, seen as low as 22, I think, on Facebook or so, as high as 26, 27. People are pulling big cards, the LeBron James base, the tribute reverse, windmill kind of two-handed dunk. It's kind of been a big card. LaMelo's card prices have held pretty steady and had a pretty good number. But I will sit here and tell you guys right now, do not chase these cards. if you want to rip the product, have fun with it. Not going to stop you from that. If I like to gamble, I've just held off on ripping it. I mean, hangers were selling for like 150 retail. That's insane. That LeBron James card is going to be massively produced. Now, I do think the LeBron James card could be a potential card to hold long term, especially a colored version, a silver version, a shorter print version. Could be like a Chalk Talk, the 05 Topps horizontal card where he's blowing and tossing the chalk in the air. It could be iconic like that. I think it is. It is a pretty big card. There's some people who think the LeBron James picture is too small, so that theoretically could affect it. But honestly, I think it is a good card to hold. I think this rookie class, it could potentially be solid. It was a weird build-up for this year. Some people, I think, forget there was no true offseason. The offseason was rushed. Training camps were non-existent for the most part. Preseason basketball just wasn't the same. So these rookies really didn't have much time, and they're getting thrown into the mix and expected to either perform or they're going to be tossed to the side and said, hey, get your act together because we've got other guys who can do what you're trying to do. So I think it's this rookie class could have a great breakout season next year. Doesn't mean I would go chasing any of these rookies anytime soon out of this Prizm class. I don't see their card prices over the next 6 months crossing this unless they just have a complete breakout season or a complete breakout summer somehow. I don't see like Halliburton's cards all of a sudden chasing above what they're at now with the Kings struggling. I could see them in the offseason potentially making a slight run, but I think potentially going into the playoffs as these teams don't make it or these rookies aren't going to be a part of it, snagging them as the playoffs come, the playoffs end, going into the offseason and potentially selling prior to the season as the hype kind of builds up. Some auction highlights. I always like to touch on these. I think it's really cool to kind of see these cards get sold. Obviously, I'm not out here chasing hundreds of $1,000s worth of cards, but Golden Auctions kind of had a nice run of gold Prizms. Steph, LeBron, Giannis, Luka, the big names, a lot of their gold Prizms sold over the last week. So the one I wanted to touch on was the gold Giannis and the gold Luka rookies, both out of 10. The Giannis was a BGS 9.5 graded. The Luka was a PSA 10. Luka sold for $645,000 and the Giannis sold for $522,000. This includes the buyer's premium and the 3% credit card fee. Who do you think is a better investment of these two? I think it's really tough for me. I think Luka has so much hype around him and the hype has stayed. That's one thing that I was worried about 6-8 months ago was there's so much hype around Luka. Does the hype stay? The hype has stayed even though the prices have fallen. Just in January, the same PSA 10 gold Prizm sold for $780,000. So there was a pretty drastic dip, $140,000 dip in just 3 months now, just under 3 months, 2 months. So it's something to keep an eye on. But also Giannis's cards have dipped as well. So there's nothing really deciphering the two, I think, right now. So for me, I don't see either of those cards being a bad investment right now. If you have $500,000 or $645,000 laying around to spend on a sports card. And the final piece of auction highlights or big sales I want to talk about is the Brady card setting a new record. Again, I talked about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. These big sales are huge for the market because it brings that ESPN, that NBC Sports, that NBC, ABC major news article or notification to people's front page. Yahoo, I saw, had an article on the front page of their site. Brady's card sold for a record $2.25 million. The same card that sold for $1.25 million that set the all-time football record in January has now been completely smashed by over $1 million. And it's interesting because the same card that sold for $2.25 million sold for now $1.11 million. I need to do some more research into this and figure out exactly. Again, not a big Brady guy, not out here buying these $1 million of cards. I'm not really one to necessarily get my hands dirty in the drama of these $1 million cards. I just think it's great news for the hobby, whether or not, whatever you want to say about getting the best price, et cetera, from these auction houses. I'm not selling with Golden. I'm not sending stuff to Legacy. I'm not sending stuff to Heritage. I'm selling stuff on eBay, Facebook, Discord groups, grinding the kind of the lower end stuff compared to these $1 million cards. But like I said, I think it's great for the hobby to see these big sales and to continue to advertise these big sales and notify you guys as they happen. I guess one more news highlight sale. Erling Haaland, soccer star, young and up-and-coming star, had a 250K sale of his red Topps Chrome Refractor. Just a population of 3 on that. But what's interesting to me is I saw someone post on Instagram that the Ronaldo Mega Cracks, Cristiano Ronaldo, who I think is my favorite player of all time in the soccer football market world, one of the biggest athletes in the world, if not the biggest athlete in the world. His Mega Cracks, which is kind of his go-to rookie card, quote unquote, $235,000 for that currently. So it's kind of like the Zion versus GOAT market. Does this cause maybe the GOATs of soccer to kind of chase? Does this cause the Messis, the Ronaldos, the Peles, the major players, Wayne Rooney's, the main guys in soccer, these GOATs, as you would call the LeBrons, Kobe's, MJs of basketball, of the soccer market, to kind of run as people see these prospects, these young guys, card prices getting so high, and saying, hey, if Haaland's 250K and I can get a Ronaldo for 230K, why am I buying a Haaland when I can get a Ronaldo whose legacy is pretty much imprinted in the soccer market? So something to keep an eye on if you're investing in anything in soccer. These GOATs could be a potential huge play going forward. All right, let's get into the next part of the podcast today. For those of you watching on video, a little different shirt because in real time here, this is a couple hours later, went and did a workout. If you're watching or listening, you didn't even have a break. So let's get into this. Obviously, you got to touch on the PSA suspension of submission levels below the Super Express. I know it's been a week now. You guys have probably seen all the content. But almost kind of want to give you guys just a different perspective now that it's been a week. Now that people have talked, people have been able to adjust their sort of way of doing things, I guess. Their strategies when it comes to grading or where they're sending cards or what they're doing about buying and selling currently. The one thing that I want people to always remember about this is cards are still coming back from PSA. I think a lot of people at first, shock opinion was like, oh my God, slabs are going to go up like crazy because of you can't submit. But the millions and millions of slabs that are at PSA are still going to be coming back. I would not jump to the automatic conclusion that all slabs are going to go up in value. I always think that slabs, especially the 8s and the 9s, 9s on market or modern cards, especially 8s and 9s as you get a little bit older, even lower grades on the vintage stuff, I think those cards are extremely undervalued just because the amount of gradable cards as raw will continue to decrease and the amount of graded cards will increase, and the amount of 10s and 9s and 8s will obviously become the new standard versus raw versus 10. I think a lot of people either are a raw buyer or a 10 buyer, and I think it'll become much easier to buy the 8s and the 9s as those become, I guess, more common and more accepted amongst the hobby. Sorry about the dogs. So that's my first thought. Make sure you guys recognize that slabs are still coming back from PSA. I think it was a decision PSA had to make. I'm on that side. I don't think this is hurting the hobby. I think this does potentially slow some of the insane growth, the insane, I call it money printing that was able to be done through bulk grading. The easy buy raw, grade, create your bankroll is no longer really a thing with PSA. But I don't think it necessarily ruins the hobby. I don't think it's the end. I think this is a decision they had to make. I mean, can you imagine millions and millions of cards, the insurance, the storage? A lot of people are like, well, just hire more people. You're not just hiring someone to like pump gas at a gas station or stock shelves at a grocery store. You have to either train them to grade, or you have to find sports card graders who want to come to PSA, which obviously there's not many sports card graders in the world. You have to have somebody who understands the sports card market and train them to be able to enter cards and get them into the system. So those are really the things that I'm sure are probably the slower parts of the process, is entering and cataloging, as well as the grading process, the encapsulating part, and obviously the shipping out part and the logistics, customer service part. They probably could have grown a little quicker on those, but I'm sure they've done everything they can. It's hard to sit here and it's like Monday morning quarterback PSA on what they're doing. They're a multi-million-dollar company. I'm sure they've done everything they can to try to get through the backlog. They've just been hit with cards out the wazoo. So when you look at it, now you have to look at alternatives to grading over the next couple months. Your options obviously are BGS, SGC, HGA, CSG, CGC for Pokemon and trading cards. And then you have other slabs like GMA, some other random ones I've seen on TikTok and Instagram. Not really sure on those. Obviously, that's a wild, wild west of the lower end grading cards. But who knows? Who knows who could come up? SGC raised their individual submission rates from $25 to $75 very quickly after the PSA suspension. So $75 a card as an individual submitter almost eliminates SGC. But I have seen them through group subbers being as low as $35 a card, which kind of makes them an option. But at the same time, it's just not really something I want to waste my money or time on with SGC. I don't see the return there. I'll talk a little bit about HGA and CSG and why I think those two are better options in comparison to SGC right now. I would rather just buy a high-end card and pay the $300, send it to PSA, get it back in a couple weeks, and go that way. Or even a BGS submission at an express level versus subbing through SGC right now. HGA, I think HGA is really kind of in that fence with obviously the super limited amount of subs per week they're allowing, the lottery system that they've officially started each week. I believe it's now Thursday nights. I heard it crashed the week that PSA suspended prices. The system crashed. Who knows if they're going to allow more cards. I know there's a majority of people who like the slabs. Some people don't. Some people think it's kind of like corny, kind of gimmicky. Some people love it. Again, the value hasn't really been able to sort itself out because there's not enough cards in the market yet to really show what the true value of the slab is, because it's easy to run up the slab price or the value of a card when there's only a couple thousand on the market. It's pretty easy comparative to millions of PSA slabs that seemingly are on the market on a daily basis. I shouldn't say millions on a daily basis. Millions are out there, I guess. But I think my current front runner / I think will be potentially the come out of this as the biggest beneficiary if they can handle things the right way is CSG. I kind of talked about CSG a couple weeks ago. CSG is under the collectors community of NGC, which grades coins, PMG, which grades paper currency, comics with CGC, trading cards now with CGC, Magic, Pokemon, and now they have branched into sports cards. They opened up in February. They took one of the better, more established graders from Beckett and hired them to run their grading services. They do a mixture of AI and in-person grading. There was a great interview with the Luca Tigers and Bronze podcast with the lead grader and one of the head people of CSG. They talked about that. But their turnaround times are very transparent with it. I've submitted through CGC for Pokemon cards. When I submitted in December is when they hit a huge rush. And comparative to PSA, they were extremely transparent with how long the turnaround times were becoming. Comparative, they responded to my emails twice. There's a forum where I was able to track with other community members where their cards were in grading. When mine were, I think, logged December 4th for a regular and economy submission, and other people whose cards were submitted in November, I could see when they started the pop and grading, etc. And there was community members as well as administrators and CGC employees in the community of the chat boards responding to people, trying to reassure people we're getting through the cards as possible. They raised their prices to help mitigate the backlog that they had, but they kept their turnaround times pretty up to date on their website on a weekly basis, and that's what the CGC rep said on the Luca Tigers and Bronze podcast, is they plan to do the same thing. So just so you guys have an idea, the express submission rate of the CSG cards are $40, and that's 15 working days. The standard submission is $25 at 25 days, and the economy rate is $15 at 40 days, and the bulk rate of a 50 card minimum is $8 at 60 days. That is if you have a membership with CSG. I believe you have to have a what you call it? You have to have a membership with CSG to be able to submit cards with them. I can actually pull it up right here. Here we go. So CSG members get great benefits, including exclusive rewards. Associate membership is the lowest level of $25 a year. It gets you direct submission privileges, 10% off the CSG store, and a free $15 CSG shipping kit and voucher for new members. The premium membership is $150 $149. This is the membership I actually have with CGC, which you cannot cross, unfortunately. Direct submission privileges, 10% off the store, free $20 shipping kit, and $150 credit with CSG. So pretty much if you buy the premium membership for $150, you get $150 back in grading fees and credit with CSG. Pretty much you get your membership back. So if you submit $200 worth of cards, you get $150 off of that. You pay $50 in grading fees plus your membership. It all evens itself out. There's an elite membership, $300. That's 10% off the store, $20 shipping thing, shipping kit, $150 credit, and 10% off your CSG grading tiers. So you get the $150 credit plus 10% off on your future submissions. They're also using bulk submitters. CadesBulkGrading.com is featured on their website, as well as KK Sports Cards. I know KK Sports Cards is one of the biggest PSA submitters. I know there's a lot of CSG group subbers who are doing group subs through CSG, not necessarily affiliated with CSG, but it's interesting seeing their website and seeing bulk submitters being featured on the site. It's very different than PSA. PSA has their bulk submitters, and they I guess you can be a PSA bulk submitter, but it's not something PSA advertises, I don't think. I don't see PSA saying, we're doing this, we're working with these people. CSG is pretty much sponsoring / getting behind these group submitters, and pretty much they've made a whole logo, CSG Group Submitter. It's a really cool kind of different mentality. CSG is the latest affiliate of the Certified Collectibles Group. Sorry, that's the group I was talking about earlier. And the customer ships the cards, the KK Sports Cards. I saw where KK Sports Cards is directly dropping them off, as they're both in Florida. They're dropping them off on Fridays. So the one thing I didn't mention about CSG, I'm kind of rambling on here, but wrap it up here, is there is a subgrade option of $10 per card, and it adds $5 or 5 working days for the standard, economy, and bulk tiers. Just something to consider. I would probably add the subgrades to any card I submit, unless I'm just submitting very low-end bulk cards to just get a quick flip. If I'm submitting $3, $4, $5, $10, $20 cards that are just pretty common cards, and I'm just trying to get in 50 cards in, 50 cards out, I would probably skip the grading tiers. But once the card kind of crosses that $25 to $50 range, I would probably highly consider using subgrades, as that kind of separates CSG from others. So that's kind of my thought process on the grading part, where I'm kind of looking to potentially sub cards. If I'm going to sub cards, I'm not necessarily in the process of subbing any cards right now. I have a few cards that I was planning to potentially sub to HGA, but obviously getting in the HGA, there were more colorful cards, PC cards that I didn't really necessarily, just kind of wanted to try out their system. The one thing that's interesting about CSG, and then I'll wrap it up, is there is a crossover option. They cross over PSA, Beckett, and SGC holders. It is 50% of the grading fee if a card crosses. So to me, that seems like maybe a really good option for the SGC cards. Maybe if you can find some really good SGC cards that are obviously graded by SGC well, it kind of gives you a bump potentially of the raw cards on eBay. So say you're looking for, easy thing is a Zion Prizm. I would much rather buy a Zion Prizm 9.5 SGC card, cross that to CSG. You're paying a little bit of a premium for the 9.5, but you're probably getting a little bit better odds of getting a gradable card out of an SGC 9.5 versus just a raw card in the top loader from a random eBay person. Think about how many hands that Zion Prizm has went through. There's had to have been one person who has considered sending that in for grading because of the premium PSA 10s have brought, PSA 9s have brought on that card. There had to have been somebody who looked that card over. All right, so this is what I really wanted to get into here, the main part of the podcast today. I just want to talk about navigating the murky waters of the sports card market, PSA suspension. We've talked about that. The modern card market has kind of staled out. We kind of see a little bit of a bump, especially in the basketball market. The baseball market took a huge bump. Soccer's potentially taking off. Vintage GOATs, especially in basketball, have kind of tanked. Where do we go from here? How do you navigate these murky times as things have drastically changed in the last 2 weeks, 6 months, 1 month? Things are drastically different. So I think right now you really have to be very strategic and do a lot of research when it comes to making your purchases. I don't think you can just throw a dart at a dartboard of an NBA rookie. You buy their card and it goes up. Same thing with NFL. I just don't think that's no longer a plausible way to go about this. You can't just buy any NBA or NFL or MLB rookie, send them the PSA or the bulk rate, get your card back in 6 months, let alone what we were trying to get of 6 to 8 months, and get a 10, 20 extra turn on that card. It's just not plausible. I don't see PSA coming back and having any lower prices. I don't see PSA coming back with any drastically quicker turnaround times necessarily for the bulk stuff than what they originally were. There's still plenty of plays to be made in the major sports, though. I think you just have to really look into potentially alternative investments versus what we've been really looking at over the last 6-8 months. We've crossed over a year now since the really influx of the COVID lockdown. We've seen investor commercial money. We've seen rises and falls of almost every smaller market within the sports card market. And I think the people who are here to stay as a majority wise since COVID are here to stay at least through when there's a potentially big crash in the collectibles and sports card market, which I think is inevitable just with any market, the stock market, housing market, tangible asset, collectible market. There will be a big crash, I think, but when that big crash happens, there will be a bigger amount of people who collect through that. But I think the people who are really here to truly stay are here to stay. I will say that going forward now, I will warn you guys, looking back on trends over the last 12 months to look forward to the next 12 months are going to be completely different. The NBA offseason was drastically different. The MLB had a short season. The NFL had some weird run-ups to the season. There was a lot of talk of it not even happening at one point. I mean, there's been a lot of differences in the last 12 months due to the COVID pandemic we are in. So looking forward to the next seasons as the NBA closes here, NFL builds up. I don't think the trends will necessarily follow the exact pattern they followed over the last 12 months. I think they will be slightly different. So make sure you are looking at those dates of when seasons are starting, using the research and using past history, but at the same time kind of creating a new strategy going into these seasons. I think you got to look at different strategies as far as where you're going to diversify your money, whether you're looking at long-term versus short-term investments, whether you're looking at GOATs versus prospects, whether you're looking at holding sealed wax more, buying more slabs, buying cards to grade still at a different grading service currently, or even when PSA comes back, you're buying to hold off for a couple months to submit to them. You really have to kind of figure out where you're going to diversify your pie chart when it comes to what type of cards for what type of investments you're looking at. Some of the things to also consider now that we've kind of come to this new thing is looking at NBA Top Shot. Does it last? I know it had a huge explosion. It's still pretty popular. I don't think there's that drastic uptick in moments like there was, or the pack openings aren't necessarily as lucrative of what they used to be. There's things like dibs and rallies, which are partial ownerships of cards. I know dibs is an instant transfer of a tangible asset versus rally, where you have to kind of be in the group. They decide when you can buy and sell your shares of the card, etc. And then you have places like StarStock and ComC, which are ComC is still a tangible asset, but StarStock is pretty much a NFT for a real card, pretty much. You never have to have the tangible card sent to you. You buy and sell at a very low percentage on StarStock, but it is very crowded now. It's not as it's kind of worn off. There are hundreds of cards submitted of NBA rookies now in StarStock A and StarStock B grades, but I still think there's money to be made in StarStock, and it could be a crucial part of your portfolio to help diversify with these kind of open-ended market we have right now. I think looking at buying local, whether that's in Facebook Marketplace, local meetups, local card shops, card shows, flipping within Facebook and Discord and eBay, I think that's a way to potentially kind of subsidize some of that market money until your cards come back from PSA. Maybe you're waiting on that. Buying on Facebook, selling in person, buying at a card show, flipping straight to Facebook. Some of the things I found at card shows, there's a little local card show at a flea market once a month. I found $10 Ja Morant, My House Hollow PSAs, raw cards I bought for $10, subbed it to PSA, got it back in a PSA 10, found it for $10. I found Ray Allen Topps rookie cards for $1. Flipped those for obviously much more profit on Facebook. So there is plays to be made on that one, grinding that. Card Collector 2, Ryan out of Columbus, does a great job of really preaching that money quickly adds up. The other thing that I like to use is market movers. I love market movers, sports card investors, market mover tools and graphs and ratios. I love finding ratios of quality cards. When I say quality players and cards, I'm meaning beyond base Prizms, beyond the low end. For example, I like buying optic color of Zion versus base Prizms of Rui Hachimura. I know Rui's a great player, but Rui's fan base is much smaller than Zion's. I like finding ratios of PSA 10s versus PSA 9s that have not necessarily in sequence. Maybe lower pop cards that haven't caught up to the bigger cards that have run. Say his Optic Holo has taken off and ran 20% over the last 3 weeks, but the Optic Purple has not necessarily taken off yet. Maybe it won't reach a 20% run up, but it easily could see a 15, 18% run up as it kind of balances out within the market and people see a deficiency there. I think this all leads back to my main point here. Create a strategy and stay patient and consistent with this. I think the sports cards are showing signs of a healthy market. I don't think, like I've mentioned before, I don't think anytime somebody can print money, as I like to kind of use that term, is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable, healthy market. Those who create plans, research, and strategically buy and sell sports cards will be benefited in the long term in a healthy market. And that's why I'm just saying, do not get frustrated with this. Don't throw in the towel. Look at what you have. Look at where you're at. Potentially you have to sell off some cards and redo your strategy. Don't hang on to things. Don't think your strategy is always going to work. Always be adapting. Always be someone to work on the fly. Deal with what you got thrown at you. I mean, PSA suspending was a huge wrinkle in it. I think that all it does is create other opportunities beyond the PSA submission process itself for you to make money in this market. I truly believe that you just have to find that. You have to find what you're passionate about. Find where you believe is next. Don't look at one person on Instagram and see them buying one card. Look at where the vast majority is going and kind of beat the crowd to it. So that's kind of what I want to talk about when it comes to navigating the sports card market. I know it's kind of a murky time right now, but like I said, create that plan, create that research, and really get after it. Final segment here. I just want to talk about the upcoming releases a little bit. Topps Tribute Baseball came out on Wednesday. It came out on Wednesday, day before this podcast. Posted along with Upper Deck Diamond Hockey. On Friday, Contenders Optic Football for 2020 releases, as well as Select Football is releasing on Friday. Those are two pretty big releases. It's crazy to think about. We're still releasing 2020 products for football as the draft is like in 4 weeks. And we're still releasing products for 2020 and major products in that with Optic, Contenders Optic, and Select. I know National Treasures is next week, I believe, as well. So it's a crazy time we're in with COVID. We just finished 2020 basketball releases with like Hoops Premium and stuff like that. There were still people finding Hoops holiday blasters for 2020 just a couple weeks ago, I feel like, retail. So it is a crazy time. COVID's caused a crazy time. PSA's caused even more craziness now. But I'm still excited about the market. I'm still excited about the direction we're going. And I think you should have excitement as well. So like I said before, this podcast is going to probably just be mainly on Thursdays with the main show similar to this, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter-ish like this. I will put out other mini podcasts throughout the time, as well as trying to do some more Instagram stuff and put my content towards there. I am creating a separate podcast for track and field with another track and field athlete soon. And so there's part of my content, as well as training for the Olympics, has become obviously my main focus and main job. So I need to make sure I have enough time for that. So I appreciate all you guys listening. I appreciate you guys tuning into the podcast today. If you haven't already, like I asked you in the beginning of the video, head on over to Instagram, hit me with a follow at Medalist _sports cards. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment with where you're navigating the market. What are you looking at? What grading company are you looking to do? Are you buying raw? Are you buying wax? What are you kind of doing in this new and crazy sports card market? If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast materials, leave a review. It really helps out. And for now, I will see you guys for sure next Thursday, if not sooner. Appreciate you guys listening and have a great weekend.